And welcome, sports fans, to today's Sports Roundtable. Glad you joined us as it is an exciting time of the year, certainly here into the first week of March. District tournaments are now behind us for all the classes 1 through 5 for Southeast Missouri High School basketball, and entering to state tournament play. A couple of rounds in, or actually one round in for the smaller schools, class 1 through 3, and heading into the first round, the sectional round for classes 4 and 5. We brought a couple games to you this week here in Southeast Missouri in state tournament play. We've got one more to bring to you later on today, which we'll talk about. But let's go ahead and recap it all over the last few nights in state tournament and even district tournament play last night throughout the area. And we'll touch on all the previews coming up for today as well that are taking place throughout Southeast Missouri. And first, let's start off with some games from the last few nights. Let's first start off with the district championship games up north. Let's go to Notre Dame High School, where the Class 4 District 1 championship took place last night at Notre Dame High School, and what a game that was, into two overtimes, double overtimes. Not much scoring in that one, as you can see. 38-37, the Notre Dame Bulldogs win the district championship in Class 4 District 1 over the defending Class 4 District 1 champion Cape Central Tigers. And what a game that was, down to the end, and went into double overtime. Interesting overtime sequence there with those two teams. The first overtime, Notre Dame got the tip. I believe took one shot at the goal, got an offensive rebound, and then ran the clock out all the way down to the last few seconds. It's a four-minute overtime period, I remind you. And took one shot, then killed the rest of the clock all the way down. Took the last shot. They had a great open look at the end of the overtime. Actually, I think it was regulation when they had the open look. I think it was at the end of regulation. They had a backdoor cut. Threw it to the player there. I can't recall which one it was, but he had an open look right on the basket, and a Cape Central Tiger went and just went for the block, and the Notre Dame player faked it and then went up, but he got it off just a hair too late. After the buzzer, it was called off. The crowd went crazy, of course, there at Notre Dame, and the crowd went crazy. They called it off because it was just a hair late out of his hand, so they had to go into overtime. And just fast forward, the overtime period was not successful for Notre Dame. They held the possession through the whole first overtime, killed that 4 minutes worth of clock, and was not successful getting the basket at the end. So going to a second overtime, Notre Dame got the tip, and then Notre Dame got the tip. Didn't kill out the whole second overtime. They had a shot, missed. Cape Central came down, traded, I think, basically one possession, and then it was Notre Dame having a 1-point lead. Cape Central come down. Actually, I think they had a free throw that they hit to go up one, and then Cape Central come down with one last attempt, had a three in the left corner, went up, no good, to pretty much wrap up the game there in Notre Dame. So you could go back in history across high school basketball, and I don't think you'd come up with too many games, maybe a handful that you'd see going to double overtime and not reach 40 points, either team. So that just shows you these are two good teams, Cape Central and Notre Dame, but that just goes to show you the defense played in this game. Both play kind of a matchup defense style, and really closes off the paint, and the outside shots weren't there to be had for the most part. So good matchup defense by both teams, and two good teams that can put up some points we've seen all year. But it seems like this Class 4 District 1 title, it's just so intense. We tended to see lower scoring games in that one, it seems like, over the years. And certainly this year, double overtime, didn't even reach 40 points. But a thriller nonetheless there at Notre Dame High School in Cape Girardeau, as Notre Dame, as the top seed coming into this tournament, had some tough competition. That even their semifinal games were tough. Notre Dame had to go into overtime to defeat Dexter. In their semifinal game, they won by 2 points. And Cape Central had to go into overtime to defeat Sykeston in their semifinal contest. So a really tough district, and it really mimicked the conference this year in the SEMO Conference. Of course, all four of those semifinal teams playing in the SEMO Conference, and it really mimicked the conference this year. They beat up on each other, had wins all across the conference against each other, and Notre Dame wins the conference outright, winning the Class 4 District 1 title. and having a great year as they move on to that Class 4 state tournament. We'll touch more about that and who they'll play next and going forward as Notre Dame won that Class 4 District 1 title. Going to the Class 5 District 1 championship over in Poplar Bluff, the Jackson Indians, as the second seed, defeated the top seed of Poplar Bluff Mules 49-45 to win that Class 5 District 1 title. Jackson's had a nice couple of weeks here to finish out their season, and they continue that last night with a district championship on Poplar Bluff's home court in that district championship game. So Jackson will move on to the Class 5 state tournament in high school basketball. And in other games, a game that we brought to you live Wednesday night over at the Live Family Sports Complex in Poplar Bluff on the Three Rivers College campus. It was Thayer defeating Bernie in a close one, 42-35. Another lowest scoring affair there from Wednesday night. Thayer winning that game of attrition, really, over Bernie. Really defensive game. It was pretty much a 1-2 possession game throughout the whole game. Thayer pretty much controlled the lead for most of it. Pretty much the whole game, it seemed like. I don't think Bernie ever got the lead except maybe I can't recall Bernie having a lead, except maybe in the first quarter, early second quarter. Thayer just pretty much held a 3 to 6 point lead, it seemed like, for the whole game, and it seemed like it was a pretty decisive lead, even though it was a one possession game. We talked about it in the broadcast, Thayer being up 3 points in the fourth quarter, and it seemed like they were up 10 just because Bernie just couldn't put a run together to either tie or take the lead. But it was a great game, defensive game. Bernie didn't really shoot the ball that well, just couldn't get going. I think they shot around 3 of 16 or something like that from 3. Just could not get that 3-point shot going. Thayer really extended their matchup zone out. They had some length, especially in their backcourt, just covering the 3-point shot, and they defended the paint well as well. So Thayer's always a good defensive team. It's hard to put more than about 50 points up on Thayer regardless of the year, just because of their defensive scheme. But a good game over there. Bernie just coming up a bit short. Thayer moves on to the quarterfinal round, and we've got some highlights of that one. We'll go ahead and show you some highlights from that that sectional game Wednesday. That was the Class 2 sectionals, and let's take a look at some highlights from the game the other night. And we see here early on, nice block there from Andrew Gohagen at the paint. Getting a nice block there, and Pitts with a little runner here early on. And Thayer getting out to an early lead on the Mules here, 6-2 with that little runner in the paint. But Gohagen really stepping through. Had a big night for the Mules. 15 points on the night for Gohagen. Getting a nice drop step there for the bucket. And we see here back and forth action through much of the first quarter. This kid, Andrew Jones, Andrews had a nice night for the Thayer Bobcats. Really mixed it up off his dribble. Here we see Landon Zoll knocking down a 3 on the right side, getting that to go. One of his 2 threes on the night. Blake Hardy getting a nice little runner there in the second quarter in the transition. And 3-pointer up and good on the left side. Thayer didn't shoot the ball all that well from the outside as well. But here we see nice basket there and the foul for Suter. Nice runner for Andrews once again. And we see here nice bucket off the rebound. Suter putting that in off the offensive board. Here nice dunk down to Gohagen. Gets it up and in. And we see here, I believe this is Pitts on the drive. Takes it all the way through the Bernie defense for the score. And Gohagen once again with a little drop step up off the rim. Gets the bounce. And Andrews here stepping in with a little elbow jumper up and good. Here into the second half. See Gohagen off the glass and the foul. Nice bucket there for Gohagen. And here nice assist from Andrews for the score for Thayer. And here nice dump down. Gohagen grabs it, puts it up and in. And we see here Zoll getting his second 3 of the night, getting it to go there late in the third. And we see here Andrews stepping through for the bucket into the fourth. See Johnny Vaughn going to step into a 3 on the left side. This is where Bernie started to make a little run here. Steal by Vaughn in the backcourt, takes it in to tie it up at 33. We thought Bernie might be able to make a run here, but a nice answer for Thayer, hitting that 3 with under 3 to go. Andrews stepping in, a little elbow jumper up and in. So Thayer answers back with 5 straight points of their own. Nice bucket there from Suter on the drive, but in the end it was Thayer holding off the Bernie Mules for that victory, 42-35, and Thayer will advance on to the Class 2 quarterfinals, which will be taking place later this afternoon. 2:45 start at Sykeston as they will take on the Oran Eagles. And take a look at that matchup. Oran defeated Brentwood in a close one down to the end, 59-57, and Oran getting back to the state quarterfinals this year. They're coming off a state championship appearance last year. The runner-up in Class 2. They're back in the quarterfinal game this afternoon. They'll take on the Thayer Bobcats, and that could be a battle. That should be a great matchup between those two. But Oran having another great run in them this year, as we've pretty much seen them play all year. They've got a great capability in their season so far, and got a chance to get back to the state Final Four in Springfield with a victory over Thayer this afternoon in Sykeston. And taking a look at some other games. Let's go to the Class 3 sectional. The Class 3 sectional that took place in Dexter Wednesday night. Charleston rolls over Scott City. No problem. 91-40. Decisive victory for the Blue Jays Wednesday night as they move on to the Class 3 quarterfinals, playing up in the Farmington Civic Center this afternoon as they will take on Ava in their Class 3 quarterfinals. So Charleston looking to get back to the state Final Four once again this year. They're coming off a third place finish last year and looking good to have a potential state championship potential in the Blue Jays here in the next few weeks. And let's take a look at down in Northeast Arkansas. Rector finishing up their year. They had a state tournament appearance in the first round, in the round of 16, and unfortunately fall to Fortis and fall 65-43. Rector having a great year. We had an earlier game early in the year with them and having one of their better years in the last few years. And congratulations to the Rector Cougars putting up a nice year down there in 2A in Northeast Arkansas. And let's go over to the girls' ranks in Class 4 District 1. Second seeded Notre Dame defeated top seeded St. Genevieve 52-32. The defending Class 4 District 1 champion Notre Dame Lady Bulldogs go back-to-back in the district championship and take out St. Genevieve. I thought that was a little strange that Notre Dame wasn't the top seed. St. Genevieve had a great year. But Notre Dame had a great year last year, making it out to the quarterfinals, and had a lot of their roster back from last year, especially their young talent, and it showed. Thursday night they had that final Thursday night up at Notre Dame, and Notre Dame advances on, and they will move on to the Class 4 sectionals this coming. That'd be Tuesday night up at the Farmington Civic Center. And let's take a look at the Class 5 District 1 championship game of the girls. Poplar Bluff, the top seed, and they defeat Jackson, the second seed, 49-44. No problem for Poplar Bluff in that victory in that girls' championship game. And let's go to the Class 2 sectionals over at Poplar Bluff that took place. Thayer defeated Neelyville. That actually went into overtime. One overtime period there as Thayer defeated Neelyville 47-40. They'll advance on to the Class 2 quarterfinals in Sykeston, playing at 1 o'clock today. And they will take on Oran. Oran defeated Crystal City in their sectional. Wednesday night, and they won 97-35. Decisive victory for the Oran Lady Eagles there Wednesday night, and they advance on to take on Thayer at 1 o'clock today at the Sykeston Fieldhouse in the Class 2 quarterfinals. Also in the Class 3 sectionals for the girls, Saxony Lutheran over Doniphan, 63-43. Excuse me. Saxony Lutheran over Doniphan, 63-43, and Saxony getting that victory and moving on to the Class 3 quarterfinals up in Farmington today, and they'll play at 1 o'clock at the Farmington Civic Center. And take a look at Naylor and Delta. Naylor defeated Delta 64-50. And Naylor getting that victory over the Delta Lady Bobcats. And they'll advance on to the Class 2 quarterfinals today in Van Buren. And that's a 1 o'clock start up at Van Buren High School in that Class 1 quarterfinal. And we've already skipped over Delta. The Delta boys defeated Cooter in the Class 1 sectional. We aired that Tuesday night in Bloomfield. and they got a decisive victory there, 120-82. Delta over Cooter in that Class 1 sectional from Bloomfield. We aired that here on YHC Tuesday night. We got some highlights as well. We'll go ahead and get to those. And here we are, Delta versus Cooter from Tuesday night in Bloomfield. Here we see early on, and it's going to be a high-tempo game. Delta really gets up and down the floor, quick shots, a lot of offensive possessions, but Cooter hanging tough here early on, getting an early lead. But here we see Isaiah Thomas getting one of his many buckets for the night, and having a big night for the Bobcats. And we see here late in the first, Delta starting to put it together, get the offensive rhythm going. Isaiah Thomas, another three-pointer, and another one falling for the Bobcats here at the end of the first. But a lot of transition buckets as well. We see Cooter out on the break getting the bucket and the foul. And we see here a nice drive to the basket. And now into the second quarter. Cooter doing its best to keep up. It's probably the fastest pace they've played all year. And when you're going up against Delta, you're going to have to play transition, up-tempo basketball and have to go into your bench for certainly into the second half. But here we see Isaiah Thomas, nice bucket there, getting the finish for the Bobcats. Little runner here. Cooter gets it to go. And here, a nice little drive into the paint. Basket up and good. I believe that was Eric Berry on that drive. And we see here a nice finish at the bucket, as we see here, Delta really starting to put it together. Three-pointer basket up and good towards the end of the first half. Thomas steps in, nice bucket off the glass. And here rounded down into the second quarter. Nice bucket underneath as Delta getting up to close to over 60 points here at half, putting up the points as they get it to go right before the half. Now into the second half, transition buckets really start to open up for the Bobcats. Here we see a nice drive up with the left hand, up and good. Really starting to pile up the points here in the second half. And off the inbound, basket up and good. I believe that was Jacob Watkins on the right side. We see here Isaiah Thomas stepping into another three-pointer. And another three-pointer on the right side, up and good. So Delta really starting to fill it up here and get a lot of points in transition, as we see there here at the end of the third. And a nice steal. No look pass to Thomas, getting it to go off the press. And here we see just the transition buckets really open up for the Bobcats in the second half. And we see here Cooter putting up again the fight here at the end of the third and beginning of the fourth quarter, and putting together a string of buckets here in the transition. And Delta just giving up a few here at the end of the third and beginning of the fourth. Make a little flurry here, but still Delta in control. Controlled much of the game even into the fourth quarter. Another three-pointer, and Delta starting to cruise for that sectional victory, and getting up over 100 points as they're certainly capable of doing with their high pace of play. We see here into the the century mark here, over the century mark, getting a few more baskets to finish that out in Bloomfield Tuesday night. And we had a post-game interview with Coach Chris Hahn, Delta Coach Chris Hahn. We're going to play that here. Marty Young, one of the commentators for the game, had a nice discussion with him in the post-game with Delta Coach Chris Hahn. So we're going to take a look at that and be back in a couple minutes. So let's take a look at that discussion we had with Chris Hahn from Tuesday night.
I have a guest with us tonight, Chris Hahn. He goes to 29-5 on the season. Congratulations, Coach Hahn.
Thank you.
Talk about the game tonight. Any expectation, any surprises?
I thought Hunter Orth had a heck of a game tonight. He did everything for us. He's been kind of sick lately, but I thought he stepped up today. Shout out to Cooter, though, real quick. I thought they played hard. Coach Mathis does a really good job over there.
Well, he ran the secondary break, and he got lots of layups off your pressure, and I don't usually see that. I saw you play a few times. As we said about Hunter Orth tonight off the bench, not just scoring, but I thought he had a good job rebounding and doing the little things. Anything you can improve on, you think, for Saturday? Of course, I guess you probably heard the score.
Yep. I think the biggest thing you just pointed out is we didn't get into our press very effectively tonight. They were able to get some layups and, some transition points against us. So, we got to transition quicker into our defense, and I think we need to come out with a little more fire at the beginning. We kind of started off slow today.
Well, I mean, I saw you, even off missed shots, I saw you been able to get into your trap pressure, even off missed shots, which is phenomenal for you to be able to have a group of kids that can do that.
Yep.
Dora, the winner. Of course, at this point, I think, what's the key to compete with Dora? Dora, year in, year out, like South Iron, you know, of course, the winner of that's going to face, did you realize that should you get by Dora on Saturday in the quarterfinal, the semifinal game, you're on the same side of the bracket with Jefferson?
Yeah. No, keys for Dora, just trying to play our game. You know, they're very talented. They got guards. They can shoot. They can attack the paint. You know, we just got to make sure we crash the glass with our big kids, Colby and Dale. They're studs. So if they control the glass, I think, you know, it'll help us a lot. But I think it should be a high-scoring game if we come out and, you know, play, and that's exactly what I want. You know, you just got to have scoring by 1 point.
Well, from what I've heard about Dora, those kids are a lot like your kids in the fact they're all about 5'11", 6'1" for the most part.
Yep.
I think Colby's going to be a little bit bigger than the kids, but those kids can play like your kids. So I think at this point, I'm going to love to be able to watch that game on Saturday. What does this mean, Coach Hahn, for Delta? Kids, families, communities, your first year there. David Heeb did his homework and brought in a basketball guy through and through. I had the privilege of working with you for the last 4 years. What does this mean for the community?
Man, I think it's huge. You know, when these seniors that we have, when they were in junior high, Delta went through like a 50-game losing streak at one point. You know, and they all started when they were freshmen, and they got pounded a little bit, you know. And just for these kids to keep working for 4 years and to get to this point, it's huge. But you know, our goal wasn't just to win this game. It was to try to make a run at state. So we got to keep going. We got to be hungry. But I'm so happy for these kids. This community backs these teams so much. You know, hopefully we can keep it going.
Good deal, Coach. Good luck to you in the future.
Thank you.
And you see there, nice discussion post-game with Chris Hahn, the victorious Delta Bobcats. And we'll talk more about their matchup going forward. We appreciate his time Tuesday night to talk with us and share with our viewers the Delta Bobcats season so far, especially post-game with their sectional victory over Cooter. And if you want to watch some games replay of the past this past week that we've aired here on YHC, we got a couple more airings of these games. Bernie versus Thayer, that Class 2 sectional, you can watch it today coming up at 11:30 here on YHC. You can go watch it anytime. Go to our website at yhctv.com, and our that one's not on Facebook, but you can go to our YouTube page as well. Watch that anytime on demand, that Bernie versus Thayer sectional game from Poplar Bluff. And also the Cooter and Delta game, you can watch that replay today at 1 o'clock. That'll be at 1 o'clock today, Saturday, here on YHC. You can go to Facebook and our YouTube and our website at yhctv.com. Watch that anytime online, on demand. And you can watch that a few more times, Cooter and Delta from Tuesday night. But the big game we've got today, our last broadcast of the year here on YHC for high school basketball, should be a great one. We've got Delta versus Dora in the Class 1 quarterfinal game, the boys quarterfinal from Van Buren High School, and that'll be this afternoon at 2:45. 2:45 start from Van Buren. That'll be live right here on Channel 21, as well as our online platforms, yhctv.com, Facebook Live, YouTube. Watch it right there from Van Buren High School right here on YHC. Should be a great game and a lot of offense, that's for sure. A lot of pace and a lot of offense. The Delta Bobcats and the Dora Falcons in that Class 1 quarterfinal this Saturday afternoon at 2:45. Marty Young will be there to bring you the play-by-play commentary, and I'll be back here in the studio ready to bring you the live production here from our studio. So look forward to that later on today, and we'll talk more about that in a moment. We're going to take our first break and be back with more. Talk about these pretty much the previews of the rounds coming up in classes 1 through 3 in the quarterfinals. We'll be back with that coming up.
If you or your loved one has disabilities that cause you to need a little help, Boot Hill Area Independent Living Services can provide the assistance you need. At Bales, we want you to have control of your life and assist you in thriving in an independent lifestyle. The Consumer-Directed Services Program allows you, the consumer, to choose who assists you in conducting your daily activities. Bales serves Stoddard, Dunklin, New Madrid, and Pemiscot counties. Call or visit our office in Kennett to see how we can help you maintain your independence.
We've had some great Glenn Sain stories over the years, like when I loaded a lot full of trucks after purchasing the dealership from Mr. Sain in 1983. He came by and said, "What are you doing with all those trucks?" I said, "Well, I hope I sell them, Glenn, but if I don't, at least my name's not on that sign." He said, "That's what I was thinking." Or the time I changed the outside color on a truck and forgot to change the inside, I got a brown truck in with blue interior. Best price, best service. Glenn Sain, and God bless our troops.
All right, now let's take a look at some headlines from this past week, starting off with last night, big Class 4 District 1 championship game, and Notre Dame boys come away with the Class 4 District 1 title and double overtime thriller with Cape Central, and Cape Central just unable to repeat as champions this year. They did lose some big names from last year, certainly Kenyon Hodges, big-time All-State player for the Cape Central Tigers, losing him, and I think they lost two other really good contributors last year, but still brought back a pretty nice team capable of coming away with another district title. Just come up a bit short against Notre Dame last night, and an oddity of a game for sure. 37-35 final score, I believe that was. 38-37. 38-37 was the final score, and going into double overtime and not even reach 40 points, but a lot of stall ball by Notre Dame in that certainly the first overtime and much of the second one. And I think there was just 2 points scored by, I think it was 35-35 going into overtime. Only Cape Central scored 2 points, which came in the second overtime, not the first. The second overtime, and it was still 35-35 all after the first overtime. And they went into the second overtime. Notre Dame got a bucket and a free throw, and to only one field goal bucket there at the rim for Cape Central. So an 8 minutes worth of play, they get 2 points for 2 points for Cape Central and 3 for Notre Dame. It's a quarter of play, 3-2. Just think about it that way. But a lot of stall there at the end. Notre Dame wanted to take it down to the last shot, and they were fortunate to come away with that Class 4 District 1 title on their home floor. Packed gym last night, the Notre Dame gym. Not certainly for a Class 4 school, pretty small gym, but they had the game certainly on radio, and even brought a YouTube feed last night, so able to watch that from Notre Dame High School. So great tournament that finished in the end. One of the best tournaments we've seen in quite some time. You had 2 semifinal games going to overtime. Dexter nearly pulled off an upset of top-seeded Notre Dame in the semifinal. That went into overtime where Notre Dame, I think, stalled the ball out, got a last shot, 2 points to win by 2. Cape Central having to take Sykeston to overtime to win in their semifinal in that 2-3 matchup in that semifinal. So a great tournament there, Notre Dame this year. Notre Dame coming out with a victory in double overtime. So you had 4 overtime periods between the semifinal and the championship game. Pretty exciting tournament there in Notre Dame this year. And Notre Dame will advance on to the sectionals. They will take on Park Hill Central, a Park Hill Central team that's really looking pretty good this year. They really put it on Sykeston earlier in the year. I think they beat them by 19 or 21 points, right around 20 points against Sykeston earlier in the year. So certainly a capable Park Hill Central team this year. Typically a Class 4 District 1 team just kind of rolls through the sectional and sometimes even the quarterfinal, depending on the opponent. But the last few years, the opponent's been pretty tougher in the quarterfinal. But certainly in the sectional round, it's just pretty much been a push through for that Class 4 District 1 team as they roll through that round. But it's going to be quite a game this year up at Farmington at the Civic Center Tuesday night. That'll be a 7:45 start Tuesday night up in Farmington for that Class 4 sectional contest. And let's take a look at some other headlines from this week. Certainly Jackson. I tell you, Jackson's really put together a fine couple of weeks here at the end of their season. That's a team that really limped out of the first of the season and really struggled through most of the season. But here in the last few weeks, they ended with a few big conference wins. Defeated New Madrid County Central. It was pretty much right in the middle of that conference. Jackson towards the bottom. I think they finished right there towards the last of the conference. But Jackson putting together a nice year here, or a nice couple of weeks, and turning into a fine season. Anytime you're in your season with a district championship, it's been a good season. And Jackson coming up with a victory over Poplar Bluff, two teams that are struggling this year, Poplar Bluff and Jackson, but Bluff getting that number 1 seed and having it on their home court, that district tournament, and Jackson pulling out the victory on the road against Poplar Bluff. So Jackson finishing strong here and with a district championship. I know the season didn't really look like much for the Indians, but finishing with a district championship, moving on to that Class 5 sectional are the Indians. So congratulations to the Indians, finishing strong and moving on to the Class 5 state tournament. Also, Charleston rolling through the Class 3 once again this year, coming off 10 straight district championships. They continue their run and got a decisive victory over Scott City Wednesday night. And moving on to the quarterfinal round where they'll take on Ava in the quarterfinal later on today. 2:45 start at the Farmington Civic Center. And of course they win. They move on to the state Final Four in in Springfield, and had a great run last year. Bring back a lot of the nucleus from last year's team. Kimball, Blessing Kimball, and Bledsoe. They've been right there in the mix the last 3 years, but certainly this is their year with that nucleus and looking to finish strong and potentially go for a state championship. I think they would have won that last year, that state championship in Class 3, if it weren't for Vashon, who's typically a Class 4 team. They just happened to dip down into that Class 3, and it's all based on enrollment. And for, I think, 1 year, they were down in Class 3. And Vashon come away with that state championship in Class 3. But they moved back up to Class 4 this year, and top of Class 4, of course. And Charleston looking good. They got a great shot. There is some tough teams down the way that are typically really good. We'll talk about that in a moment. But Charleston, finishing strong once again into the quarterfinal round, taking on Ava. And speaking of that Delta-Dora game, this is a big contest. It's going to be our season finale here on YHC for our basketball broadcasts. We're not able to go past the quarterfinal round with video broadcasts, so the Final Four is off limits for us. But the quarterfinals, as far as we can go, and we got a dandy for you this afternoon. Delta versus Dora. Dora looking to win that state championship. Of course, Delta looking to move on and extend their season. Dora came up second place last year with that impressive team they had, and kind of an oddity of a team. Their nucleus pretty much starting all sophomores, and I think they did bring maybe one junior off the bench last year, but certainly a strange team, a team made up of mostly sophomores, pretty much dominating their season. Come up a bit short in the state championship game last year, so coming up with second place. They're hungry to move back to the Final Four in Springfield to win that state championship this year. Chris Hahn, the Delta Bobcats, this is their year. They've had a good group that's come through, now with a senior-laden group looking to extend their season against a very talented Dora team. It's going to be an up-and-down team. I tell you, we could see a game, certainly one of these teams I think is going to hit 100, just with the pace of play that Delta plays with. If they're able to really play well offensively, they could stretch to 100 points. But I'd say a Dora, very good defensive team. You look back to that game last year in the same game in the quarterfinals as they took on Risco. Risco had a very good team last year, especially offensively. Had an all-state guard, Nathan Burnett. E.J. Myers, really great sharp-shooting three-point shooter, and a very senior-laden group last year with Risco. I think they graduated 6 or 7 seniors, and and Dora brings back everybody. So it's going to be a tough out for the Delta Bobcats, but a lot of offense. You're going to see a lot of high-paced play, so a promise of points, especially on offense, in this matchup later on today at Van Buren. And it'll be the Delta Bobcats and the Dora Falcons up in Van Buren this afternoon with a 2:45 start. We'll have it for you right here on YHC. Marty Young will bring you the play-by-play action. I'm going to be doing more in-studio production here from our office to bring you that broadcast here on YHC this afternoon. Again, 2:45 start. We'll carry it live right here on YHC. Can't wait for that one. A lot of offense. I mean, that's what everybody likes, offense. And I think we're going to see more of like an NBA pace this afternoon between these two teams, the Dora Falcons and the Delta Bobcats. A lot of talent in this one. I forgot to mention Isaiah Thomas for Delta, scoring 43 points in that sectional game against Cooter. He had a great game. He looks to duplicate that. Also, Kobe Crater, Eric Berry got great scoring ability there as well. And Dora's got great talent. This junior class is awesome, but they do have a Division I signee, their best player, Isaac Haney. He has signed with Missouri State. He's a Missouri State commit. Even as a junior, he committed to Missouri State earlier in the year. Great guard. Of course, the Luna triplets. Just good all-around ball players. So I'm looking forward to a great game. It's going to be a packed house there at Van Buren. We'll bring it live to you right here on YHC this afternoon. So look forward to that. And we're going to take another quick break, and we're going to come back with those state tournament brackets going forward with classes 1 through 3. We'll take a look at those in a second.
At Baldwin Ford Lincoln Toyota, every new vehicle and most pre-owned vehicles come with a lifetime warranty at no cost to you. And what does that cover?
It covers the engine.
And it also covers the transmission.
And it covers the rear end. We're talking about a lifetime of protection, unlimited time, unlimited miles, at absolutely no cost to you for the entire time you own the vehicle.
So come see us at Baldwin Ford Lincoln Toyota, home of the lifetime warranty in Poplar Bluff.
And we're back, and now let's take a look at those state tournament brackets going forward. We're into the quarterfinal round for classes 1 through 3. So let's take a look at those matchups. And the boys Class 1 state tournament, these are the teams that are remaining in the state tournament in Class 1. And it looks like we got 7 teams. As of course, we're going to bring the game to you live today. Delta versus Orion up in Van Buren. Should be a great game. Jefferson Conception won there. Jefferson of Conception Junction won their sectional game, so they await the winner of Delta and Dora. I'll tell you, one story program there at Jefferson. I think it was in the mid to late 2000s. I think it was late 2000s, maybe around the 2010s. I can't recall especially, but they won 4 to 5 straight state championships there at Jefferson. So they're back in the mix once again this year. And they await the winner of Delta and Dora in that quarterfinal matchup. And Jefferson awaits in the semifinal round, the state Final Four in Springfield, for the winner of Delta and Dora. And the other matchups, Golden City versus Green Ridge, and also St. Elizabeth versus Medville. That's the Class 1 state tournament going forward for the state of Missouri. And in Class 2, these are the 8 teams remaining in the Class 2 state tournament. We've got Thayer and Orion at the Sykeston Fieldhouse this afternoon. 2:45 start over there. Should be a great game there over in Sykeston. The neighboring quarterfinal is Skyline versus Mid-Buchanan. Then Milan versus Eugene. And a big mammoth matchup later on today over at Republic High School out in the Ozarks. Will be Hartville versus Greenwood. Now, Greenwood is the defending Class 2 state champion, and they defeated Orion in that district or in that state championship game, if you can recall that, last March. And they meet up with Hartville, which Hartville and Greenwood are number 1 and number 2 in the state in Class 2, and I can't recall which one. I think Greenwood is number. Greenwood is number 1. So there you go. The last state rankings, Greenwood, the defending Class 2 state champion. They've been number 1 all year long, but right behind them is Hartville, and they've pretty much been number 2 all year long. So we got the top 2 ranked teams in the state in the quarterfinal round this afternoon. Should be a great matchup between those two, Greenwood and Hartville. And Hartville, they defeated Dora, one of the top ranked teams there in Class 1. They defeated Dora earlier in the year, so they've got a feather in their cap from that game for sure. And Greenwood, having one of the top players in the state, I believe it's Aminu Muhammad, big-time forward for Greenwood. I think he stands around 6'6", I believe, and he does it all. He scores, he rebounds, he dribbles, he passes. I mean, he just does it all. Does it mainly from the post position, but a great talent in Aminu Muhammad for Greenwood. So he looks to duplicate his performance as he did all last year. And he's a young kid too. I believe he might only be just a junior this year. He had a great year last year, as we certainly saw through the state championship. I think he was only a sophomore last year, if I recall correctly. I think that is the case. So he could have, I think he might be just in his junior year this year. But regardless, going to be a great matchup there. The top 2 ranked teams, the defending state champion versus potentially the eventual state champion in Hartville. Should be a great matchup over there in Republic, over at Republic High School this afternoon. I believe that's a 3:30 start over there at Republic. So big time matchup there between those two, much like Dora and South Iron was last week, or this last week. That was Tuesday night over at Mountain Grove, the top 2 ranked teams in the state there in the sectional round between South Iron and Dora. And moving to Class 3, Charleston takes on Ava this afternoon up at Farmington, as we mentioned. That's the quarterfinal matchup there. Then you got Monroe City versus Central of Kansas City. Then Cardinal Ritter out of St. Louis taking on Christian. Then Blair Oaks versus Fair Grove. So a lot of nice talent there in that Class 3 state tournament. We see Cardinal Ritter always there in the mix. Blair Oaks, really good team around. Jeff City and Central KC's really good this year too as well. Monroe City really, really nice, and Ava putting up a great year. I think they're 24-5 on the year. So a lot of good teams remaining there in that Class 3 state tournament. And let's go over to the girls ranks. Let's go to girls Class 1 state tournament. Naylor takes on South Iron later on today over at Van Buren. That'll be a 1 o'clock game over at Van Buren in that quarterfinal game. And we'll see what happens there. And then the neighboring quarterfinal, we've got Norborn versus South Nodaway with Jefferson. And that'll be in the other quarterfinal. Montrose versus Walnut Grove. And Community versus Green City. Those are the quarterfinal matchups and the remaining teams in that girls Class 1 state tournament. And Class 2, Thayer takes on Oran. That'll be today over in Sykeston. So it'll be a mirror of the boys game. So Thayer and Oran, boys and girls over there this afternoon. It'll be a 1 o'clock start over at the Sykeston Fieldhouse. Thayer versus Oran. Then you got Miller versus East Buchanan. Paris with Faith Walk versus Tipton, then Mansfield versus Blue Eye for the girls Class 2 state tournament quarterfinal matchups. And in girls Class 3 state tournament of at Farmington at the Civic Center this afternoon at 1 will be Saxon Lutheran versus Licking. Then you've got Macon versus Maryville, Whitfield versus Lutheran St. Charles, and Southern Boone versus Stratford. And Stratford having a great year once again. Powerhouse there in Class 3 for the girls in high school basketball. So those are the matchups and remaining state tournaments for Classes 1 through 3 in the state of Missouri. And, of course, the winners of today's games will move on to the state Final 4 semifinals that's now taking place over Springfield. So it's really nice for us here in southeast Missouri to just head over on Highway 60 out west there to Springfield. Closer than it was up in Columbia for sure, and nicer drive as well, just straight over on Highway 60 to Springfield, and we'll see who gets to make it to the state Final 4 in Springfield after this weekend. It's going to be exciting. We'll see what happens. And we're going to take a quick break and give you a little update on some other things happening with Southeast Missouri, notably Southeast Missouri State. Big weekend for Southeast Missouri State, certainly with the women's basketball team. We're going to touch on that and just a little bit more before we wrap up today. We'll be back with that coming up.
Coming soon, the Harry Blackwell family of dealers will launch the future of automotive buying in Southeast Missouri.
And welcome back, and wrapping up for today's show, let's talk about the SEMO women's basketball team. What a season they've had. We haven't really covered a lot of college sports here on the Roundtable over the last month or a couple months, certainly in the winter season. But the SEMO women's basketball team's had a great run, and even having a local talent in Carrie Shepard of South Pemiscot. If you can remember a good 5 years ago at South Pem, she had a great run there at South Pemiscot. She's now playing for the Southeast Missouri State Lady Redhawks, and they've had a great run this year. They're in the OVC tournament, the Ohio Valley Conference tournament over at Nashville, and they've had a great run through this tournament. Notably, in the quarterfinal game, they played Tennessee Tech, and they are the 3rd seed. SEMO's the 3rd seed in the OVC tournament, and they played Tennessee Tech in the quarterfinal game and had a buzzer beater. They were down 2, 81-79, and they were down 2, and they had a step-back three-pointer at the buzzer, do or die on the three-point shot that sunk to win by 1 point at the buzzer in the quarterfinal round to advance, and it made the Sports Center top 10 on that night. Sports Center top 10. That they played the top 10 plays for the day, and it was the number 1 top play for Sports Center. And how could it not be? A buzzer beater, down 2, a three-point step back shot at the buzzer, down 2 to win it. And SEMO advanced on, and they had a great follow-up game in the semifinal game. I believe that was yesterday or a couple days back. I believe it was yesterday. Yeah, Friday. It was a Friday game. SEMO defeated second-seeded Belmont. Defeated Belmont in the semifinals, and what a game they had. They scored 114 points. They won the game 114-99 in that semifinal game, and that's a lot of points. For women's basketball, it's typically a kind of a slower pace, but the shooting really took off for the SEMO Lady Redhawks, and they won 114-99. They shot 14 of 16 from three-point line. That is amazing. 14 of 16. That's almost 90%. That's upper 80% from the three-point line. That is just amazing at any level. And shooting 14 of 16 from the three-point line, you're not going to lose hardly any games. You're going to win well over 90+% of the games. You shoot 14 of 16 from the three-point line, and that totaled 114 points in their effort as they are playing in the playing in the Ohio Valley Conference Championship this afternoon. It'll be a 2:00 start, and I'm sure you can watch that online. I'm looking online here. There's ways to watch that online, certainly through the OVC network. But I believe you can go online and watch that. If you're interested in watching that game, go to the OVC network. Just probably Google search OVC, the OVC conference or OVC network, and you get to the website and you can watch that certainly online. There for SEMO playing in that Ohio Valley Conference Championship. They'll take on the top seed UT Martin. I believe they're the Lady Skyhawks, and we'll be looking forward to that today. It is a 2:00 start, and third seeded SEMO versus top seeded UT Martin, and that is the championship game later on today. 2:00 start, and that's from Nashville this afternoon. So it should be a great game, great opportunity for the SEMO Lady Redhawks to pull away with that. It's in Evansville. Either way. Evansville, Indiana. They've had it in Nashville before. I always remember being in Nashville, but it is in Evansville, Indiana at the Ford Center. 2:00 start today for the tournament championship, Ohio Valley Conference, and you watch on ESPN Plus. So if you're an ESPN Plus subscriber, log on there, search up the Ohio Valley Conference or SEMO or UT Martin. You watch it on ESPN Plus if you're a subscriber, and I'm sure you can probably log on to the OVC network and probably watch it there as well. So, and I'm sure they'll have it online. I can't remember what that station is. ESPN Radio on, listen to ESPN Radio out of Cape Girardeau. Eric Sean will have that play-by-play for you on the radio if you want to tune in for that. So, great opportunity for the SEMO Lady Redhawks, and I tell you, they've had a great run here the last few years. They've had good teams even the last few years. I've been keeping up with them kind of casually, but they've had a great year. Their coach, she's won conference coach of the year. She's done a great job coming in. She was a Baylor assistant. Baylor's one of the big programs in the country. She was an assistant there. Comes to SEMO, and it's been upwards ever since. And playing in the OVC Conference Championship today, chance to move on to the national tournament with a victory. Of course, the conference tournament championship victories are automatic bids to the national tournament for March Madness. So good luck to the SEMO Lady Redhawks today. They have had a great season, and hopefully they can move on. It's also great that they've got a local talent here from the Boot Hill, Carrie Shepard, one of the best women talents that we've seen, or certainly girl talent in high school, certainly girl talents that we've seen come through in high school basketball here in the Boot Hill. So she's having a great year as well. One of their leading scorers. I believe she leads the conference in three-point field goals for the year. So she's had a great year and looking to finish up a great career there at SEMO this year. So good luck to the Lady Redhawks later on today in their OVC title contest. And that's all we got for you today. Wrapping up our season for the broadcast season with Dora and Delta today. A great way to do it and a great matchup this afternoon. We'll have that for you right here on YHC. Look forward to that. Marty Young will bring you the play-by-play. We're going to do some production duties here at the studio to bring you that game live. So look forward to that from Van Buren this afternoon. Dora versus Delta, and that'll be our season. Our broadcast schedule comes to an end here this afternoon. It's been a great year, and always, we talk about it each year. It's been great. It's always great. It just never lets down. Even though some years we see a lot of talent graduate on, and it's like, man, it's really going to be hard to live up to this season. And then, the season comes back around, and we're just, satisfied all over again. It just always lives up. Southeast Missouri basketball always lives up to our expectation one way or the other, and it's certainly done that once again this year. Had a great Christmas tournament in Bloomfield, great conference tournaments this year. I think we had some of the best conference tournaments we've had this year when it comes to the Boot Hill Conference, the SEMO Conference, the Tri-County Conference, competitive once again this year, and certainly with the Stoddard County Conference with Bernie and Dexter atop there with the battles they had. Great conference schedules this year, and certainly the tournaments that followed, and just ended up with a great year. Certainly the district play, seen some of the most competitive district tournaments we've seen. Certainly in that Class 2 District 1 and Class 4 District 1. It just always lives up. And glad you joined us this year for another successful season. Appreciate all the sponsors out there. I know you've seen the same commercials you've seen all year long in these broadcasts, but you have to understand it's the sponsors that really make it possible. It certainly makes it possible for us to do as many games as that we do. We do 2, 3, sometimes even 4 games a week, but it's the sponsors backing that allows us to do as many games as we do, and especially with the Christmas tournament, all 26 games. I think we do upwards to about 60 basketball games a season, regular season, postseason, district, state tournament games, and the Bloomfield Christmas tournament. It gets upwards to around 60 games depending on the year and how many district state tournament games we do. But it's all because of the sponsors. You see these sponsors, their commercials throughout the year. If you're just casually going into their business, you see the owner, you see the manager, just tell them, hey, appreciate y'all sponsoring and advertising on the YHC games. We enjoy that every year, watching on TV, online. It's worth telling those folks. We appreciate it, and do business with them as well. Always patronize with the sponsors in any way possible. We appreciate everyone out there backing our broadcast once again this year, and it makes it all worth it to spread out to all of our communities in Southeast Missouri, Northeast Arkansas, all the great basketball that takes place each year here in our area. So there you go. That's our show for today, and appreciate everyone for tuning in. We'll have another roundtable. We'll continue all the way through the spring to pretty much the end of the school year here with a roundtable. So we'll have more for you next week, and looking forward to a great game today, Delta and Dora, for our season finale here on our broadcast schedule. So have a great weekend, and we'll see you next time. Take care, everyone.